worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
And welcome. Glad you guys are with us. And we had a great 22nd annual Worldview weekend. We'll get into a little details, tell you about that. We got to get to the fact that apparently the mayor of Chicago says we're going to have a rematch of the Civil War. That's what the right wing wants. The right wing wants a rematch of the Civil War. Really? We're the ones that have been warning about Civil War. It's in the subtitle of my documentary from December of 2019, but it wasn't coming from the right. It was coming from the left. And this is more of the Hegelian dialectic. And I know I use that word a lot, folks. You got to get used to hearing it, because if you do not understand the Hegelian dialectic process, you do not understand what's happening in this country. And the globalists want all the sides fighting each other. Conflict, conflict, conflict. Remember, Solinsky said the change comes from the conflict. Remember in the book by the Jesuit Malachi Martin, I should say. He was a Jesuit who turned against the Jesuits and said that the globalists were going to use the Jesuits, the Marxists, to help destabilize countries. And he warned that the Jesuits inside the Catholic Church, and they were really working as an independent, type movement in many regards to destroy traditional Catholicism. And he said not only traditional Catholicism, they would seek to destroy Christianity as a whole. And the Jesuits and the Masons would all be working together. Now, whether you agree with this, folks, or not, I'm just telling you what a Jesuit who saw it, left the Jesuit order, started writing books. And when you go read his books, which I've detailed in many presentations with PowerPoint, it's almost prophetic. What he said was going to happen long before it happened. But he said in the introduction of his book on the Jesuits, it was a bestseller, that one of the Jesuit leaders, Carney was a diehard Marxist Jesuit who went down to South America to support the communists down there in South America in the 70s, I think it was. And he disappeared. Many people think he ended up being killed down there. But he quotes Carney, this Jesuit, who said that the future of the Catholic Church as a whole is what he said, but it was really the Jesuits. The future of what they do will be the Hegelian process. As quoting a Marxist Jesuit. Of course, that's what Hegelian dialectic. George Hegel, who was very much part of the worldview of, if you will, Marx. So you have to understand this thesis and antithesis, idea, opposite idea, the conflict. And so here I go away on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for our 22nd annual National Worldview Weekend. And I didn't have time to watch the news and monitor it like I normally do. So yesterday, I'm trying to recover from what was a wonderful Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but we're exhausted. So I'm trying to recover from that, but also get caught up on all that I missed because I was so busy administrating the conference, the concert Thursday night, administrating the banquet, the conference, speakers, all that goes with that. Hosting them in our home. Also had all of the speakers in our home on Saturday for lunch, Saturday night for dinner. We had some of our volunteers, some old-time friends that came to the conference that we've known for 30 years that came to town. We had Tina, the CEO of Worldview Talk. We had her sister, the medical doctor, Dr. Bashima. So we had a few people who were like, hey, come on over. Love to have you in our home. So Melissa had a house full on Saturday for lunch and Saturday night for dinner. And she did a marvelous job, and people were, going on. City Pal just couldn't quit talking about it. The hospitality, the hospitality, the hospitality. People just don't open their homes like that much anymore, do they? Particularly not to about 25 people. She did, and as always, it was Martha Stewart would have been envious of her style and her ability and what she pulled off. So needless to say, both Melissa and I, as I'm administrating the conference and she's running the resource table and then trying to make sure everything's ready to go for lunch, everything's ready to go for dinner. And so both of us were just exhausted yesterday, rightfully so, but it's a good tired. So I start trying to catch up on the news and I start making a list of all that's happening in the news to talk to you about today. And can I tell you, I was shocked at how much has happened since I went off the air. And I thought to myself, is this news cycle normal? Or is it that I had to take a break from it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for 4 days? And now that I'm seeing all that's been going on for 4 days, it seems like overwhelming what's happening. In other words, when you're in the stream, you're kind of just going with the stream. You're going with the flow. When you get to the shore and you get out for 4 days and rest and get your bearings and somewhat of a normalcy of your life outside of the national and international news, just your local life. And then you jump back into the stream, you're like, whoa, stream is really swift. Has someone opened up some dams up top? Is the water moving faster than it was? Or am I just not used to this because I was out of the water, out of the stream, out of the current for 4 days? I don't know. I don't know. But I can tell you why I can absolutely see, my friends, why some people who get out of this for a day or two and come back in decide they don't want to come back in. What's the old saying? Ignorance is bliss. I get that. That's a natural human reaction. And I understand why some people even say to me, I love your broadcast, Brandon. I listen to your broadcast, but sometimes I just have to take a break for a couple of days. I totally get that. I totally get that. But I have to tell you, the common theme of all the stories that I was catching up on over the weekend related to what's happening in America. We can talk about what's going on with Gaza and Iran and the Middle East and Qatar. Everything that I was thinking about this weekend related to the stories I was seeing in America is Hegelian dialectic. Thesis and antithesis, idea, opposite idea, conflict, chaos. Now, remember during the first Trump administration, I said, now, is God allowing President Trump to be elected because he is going to bless some of us who have been working so hard and proclaiming truth and using the opportunities of broadcast and terrestrial radio like VCY America or WROS out of Florida and social media? We're doing all we can to proclaim truth. Is he gonna allow us to have a little more time of spreading truth? Is he blessing us with the opportunity to have a little more time? But is he also going to use Donald Trump to judge America? Remember, I wrote a column about that during the first term when he was first elected. I said they can both be true. God could be blessing us with a little more time, a little more freedom, but he could also be judging America because he will use Donald Trump to draw out the enemies of America. Think about that. Well, that didn't really happen the first term, did it? But it sure is happening the second term. We are getting more freedom. Our YouTube channel is opened up. Facebook is opened up. We're getting amazing traction on Facebook like we've never have. We're getting amazing traction on YouTube. Not everybody that was with me this weekend can say that. They were telling me, I'm shadow banned, I'm blocked. I don't get any traction on those platforms. I think God has providentially allowed us to have that opportunity. We've done nothing. But all of a sudden, it's like someone just threw a switch and said, let's let these guys get out there. And we're reaching people. And we're teaching through the book of Revelation. We're doing our best to do what God's called us to do. And he's providentially blessing us in spite of ourselves to reach more. This has happened during the second term, during the second Trump administration. So is that a blessing? Yep. But it also seems as though God has maybe, again, as I said there in the first term, I thought was going to be the issue. Maybe it's the second term. Donald Trump, in some ways, is drawing out the enemies of America. The Muslims are rising. The Marxists are rising. The red-green axis in these major cities are now saying they're basically saying they're not basically. Some of them are saying they want conservatives and their children dead. You have a man running for attorney general. I'm reading all weekend, a man running for attorney general in Virginia that is openly talking about this kind of violence. And the Democrats apparently have put out a press release. They're standing behind him. You have in Portland, ICE officers being attacked. The police don't want to do anything. Chicago, we now have the documented proof. ICE officers being attacked, and the police were told to stand down, let this attack happen. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been telling you guys for a couple of years, we're already in a civil war. Remember, that was the point of my documentary, Siege, and the subtitle was Civil War, World War III. And we started out with Daniel Greenfield saying, we're already in a civil war. That's when one side doesn't want to obey the laws. They don't want to honor elections. People say, well, there's no shooting. Well, that's how a civil war ends. Remember Daniel Greenfield saying that in the opening of that? So we've been saying for a while, we're in a civil war. Well, now more Americans are seeing that there are leaders that have gotten to the top in states as attorney generals or running for attorney generals or as governors or of mayors. And what are they calling for? They're literally, many of them, calling for violence. And some of them have been for some time against conservatives, Christians, Jews. Some of them now are not allowing their police to defend federal officers that are trying to round up international drug cartels and gangs. And can I ask you, do you think that this whole thing with ICE is just about ICE? Do you think the troops are going into these cities only because of illegal immigration? Or do you think there's more to it? I think there's more to it. I don't know what it is. My gut tells me there's more to it. How many of you think the 800 officers and admirals being called in to Quantico was just about them to give them a little pep talk on DEI and get with us or get out? Or do you think that was a cover because they really needed to bring several of them to the DC area for a briefing in the room, but they couldn't do it because it'd be too obvious. So let's call them all to town and we can tell everybody, you better be minding your P's and Q's so we can use it for that. That'll work. We're done with your DEI stuff. You better get on board. But we can use that as cover. In other words, we can accomplish several things here, but we need these other guys in town for what's the vital meeting about what we're going to be doing and what's coming. Now, of course, we remember the DNI 2-3 weeks ago memo on a Friday about first responders. Now we're hearing that many of these groups have stolen and have acquired the uniforms of first responders. What is going on here, folks? Enemies, foreign and domestic, agitating for conflict with the Hegelian dialectic. Leo Holman up next. We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where we talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHouseBG.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 fast action. All right, welcome back. Glad you guys are with us. WorldviewTube.com, WorldviewRadio.com. Leo Holman is going to join us in 1 second here. So our enemies, foreign and domestic, funding an agitation. How much Qatar money is in here teaching Islam, anti-Semitism, funding riots? You know, tomorrow is the second solemn anniversary of the October 7th attack in Israel. And we're hearing that many universities, their students will be celebrating and honoring the martyrs. And I'm not talking about the dead Jews. They're talking about those who carried out the October 7th attack, who died as so-called martyrs. That's who's going to be honored. Well, it'll be very interesting to see how that goes down tomorrow in many of these universities. But the fact that that's happening is pretty startling, right? But not surprising. But how many of you think that some of that's being funded by Qatar or Saudi Arabia? One of the things Hadia said this weekend in her talk, and if you weren't part of the Vault membership and didn't see it, then you can still gain access, because I think by end of tomorrow, all the talks will be up there. More information of that is available at worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. But Hadia said on Thursday night, we filmed it, that before 9/11, her team, and she said all of this is documented, all of it's documented. Her team was saying that something like 9/11 was in the wind and how it would happen and what we needed to do. But nobody wanted to listen to her team. She said the government has people in it who have been flooded with Qatari Gulf state money, Saudi money, Qatar money. And the people that are in the government who are getting all of this money are doing their bidding. And then you have those in the government who aren't getting that money, who are saying, we should listen to people like this. Apparently, that's a small group. And then 9/11 happens. And all of a sudden, they're like, you see, these people aren't crazy. But she said they thought we were crazy. We were a cult. We were crazy. And then 9/11 happened. And she said, then I was sent, and she named these countries, some of them. We're talking dozens and dozens of countries she was sent into to try to develop moderate networks. Go into these countries, develop moderate networks to gain information on what the radicals are doing, but also to try to develop moderate networks to get the moderate Muslim leaders to de-radicalize the radicals. And she will tell you, despite all the effort, all the traveling, all the money, they could not overcome the money of Qatar and Saudi Arabia and others. And she learned that really the radicals, that's Islam. Where do you think we are today? And how much of this money from the red-green axis is coming into America, whether it's the CCP, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, to fund this chaos in our country? And is this not interesting timing, as we keep saying, for what appears to be also World War III, the convergence of a civil war, civil chaos in America with a world war? You guys paying attention? Of course you are. And Donald Trump, is he being gaslit? Are they gaslighting Donald Trump? Did they let all of these folks in during the Biden administration? And they were going to use them one way or the other. And folks, these guys, remember, many of them demonically inspired, satanically inspired, they have really good plans. These are not stupid people. Some of them are, and some of them are very dark and hearted, but some of them are not stupid in that they are getting encouragement, demonic encouragement to do what they do. And they have multiple plans. If Donald Trump doesn't win, if we can steal the election, we'll use them to do this. If Donald Trump does win, we'll use them to do this, and we know how Donald Trump will respond. And that will further the narrative that we want to then spin up the governor, the mayor, I should say, Mayor Johnson of Chicago. Will use this to spin up other mayors and governors and AGs to fulfill the narrative of what we have said about Donald Trump. Because we know if we do this, this, and this, he'll respond like this, this, and this, and then he fulfills our narrative, and now it's on. And yet it's not the right that is calling for a civil war. It's not the right that has gone to war with the federal government. It's the left. And so we had a great weekend. And I want to thank, by the way, my local police department. We had 2 security guys, and they did a marvelous job for us. They've been with us before, and they worked wonderfully with our police department here in town and our police chief, who got on the phone with me twice with 4 or 5 guys in his office, SWAT leaders and others. They took this event very, very seriously this weekend. They told me point blank what their plans were, their perimeters, the levels of security they would be using, drones. And then the presence of the police went beyond what we went beyond what we even ever imagined. The police continually were present in the parking lot, walking through the conference, asking me if everything's okay, asking my security guy, going up, Mrs. House, is everything all right, Mrs. House? They couldn't have been better. And we bought a bunch of Starbucks cards for them for coffee that will be delivered to a bunch of them. And interestingly enough, I picked up Sydney Powell yesterday to take her to the airport. The lobby was just full of Pakistani Muslims. The other hotel was full of Pakistani Muslims. I don't know if they're having a conference or what, but wow. And they're targeting Texas. They're targeting Tennessee. They were in town the same weekend we were. And I don't know if that was giving people heartburn or not, that were, but they were very good to us, our police department, and I thank them. It was a great conference, and people came from all over the country. And we did announce that next year we have a contract with the Waukesha Expo Center. I think it's October 23, 24, whatever that Friday and Saturday is of next year. It'll be our Lord willing, our 22nd annual Worldview Weekend. I guess that would be the 23rd and the 24th, October 23, 24. I hope you'll mark it on your calendar. And we're going to make it free. We're going to make it free because I made that decision, as you know, last week or week before. I think that we can raise the money and we need to reach as many people as we can, and the hour is late. So please mark it for Friday night, the 23rd of October, Saturday, the 24th of October, and we'll let you know. We had a wonderful group of people that came from far and wide. And many, many, many streamed it. Now, I'll have to tell you, our numbers were not as big as I wanted, but I think it's financial, and I think many were afraid to come to Memphis. And I can understand when we were all over the news with the National Guard showing up here and President Trump's talking about it, and it just scared a lot of people, no doubt. But hopefully you guys won't be scared to be a part of it next year in Waukesha. Someone said, you're going to Milwaukee next year. That's about as bad as Memphis, isn't it? I said, look, the same thing. It's going to be in Waukesha. That's like Collierville. They're very similar communities. They could be sister communities. Waukesha and Collierville have an awful lot in common. And the police chief up there was very good to us in April as well. So, folks, it's just reality. It's what we live in. Okay? And that's what a couple people said this weekend when I was talking to the crowd. One lady said, who was from here clearly, it's just Memphis. We're all used to it. Well, we aren't. If you stay in Germantown and Collierville in the suburbs, you're fine. You want to go to the bad parts of town, you're going to have a problem. And I'm sure that's the case with Milwaukee and Chicago and Kansas City and everywhere else. But we're going to go there, Lord willing, the 23rd, the 24th, October 2026, and we're going to make it free. But you will have to register. We'll let you know when that's available. We'll start announcing the speakers. And that'll be our 23rd annual National Worldview Weekend. Joining me now is Leo Holman. Leo, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Good to hear that you had a successful conference over the weekend.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And I want you to hear this, Leo. Listen to the mayor of Chicago.
Control the ministry. I said very candidly that the right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. I want that to sit in right now, because the President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America.
That's right.
He's more interested in giving billions of dollars to other nations, while farmers in urban cities around this country are literally being destabilized.
Money from us. And it might be shocking people, being the strong Zionist I am, but I got to be consistent. But I don't think President Trump has declared war on people. And I would think a guy like this mayor would say, I could need some help. We got international drug cartels and crime and murder. Like, we can't handle it. We don't have enough police. Well, it's probably because you're like Memphis and you got a lot of corruption and millions and millions and millions of dollars missing. And here in Memphis, we have 700 open slots for the Memphis Police Department. 700 because of DEI, criminal activity going all the way into the government, documented by people like Judge Joe Brown and many others. But here is a mayor, and then you got the attorney general guy, the guy running for attorney general in Virginia, talking as they are. You got Portland doing what they're doing. Chicago standing down cops, not backing up the ICE officers being attacked this weekend. That's documented. Leo, the left seems like they want a civil war, but they're going to blame it on the right. Here's your Hegelian dialectic, Leo.
Yeah, I think they've lived so long with the crime the way it is and the drug trade the way it is that that's just normal for them. So, and they're probably making money off of that system continuing as it is under the status quo.
The order establishes
Yep.
So you get somebody in there like President Trump, who's a disruptor and is talking about disrupting the status quo. And of course they're angry and they're ready to go to war, Brandon. We've always known that the left is, they're always gearing for a fight. They look for a fight. President Trump is giving them their wish. He wants to fight as well. So now you've got two sides unwilling to back down. And where is that heading? I think it is heading exactly in the direction that you said, civil war. It's just a matter of when the powder keg, the fuse to this powder keg gets lit. That is all we're waiting on. I think the situation is ripe for it. It's been years in the making with what's been going on in these cities. But now, like I said, we've got a commander-in-chief who's willing to push things to the limit on the other side. And they're not going to back down. I think the left is always eager to fight if you're game on for it. And President Trump seems like he is. So, it was never going to happen in the opposite direction. When we had Joe Biden, when we had Barack Obama, and they were throwing this stuff in our face, calling us, fanatical, right-wing, dangerous extremists, that it was the white Christian nationalists this country was under threat of being destroyed from, not the Islamists, not the Marxists. They were they were loaded for bear, trying to incite us to civil war. But the right never acts out in violence as a group. There may be an individual here or there, but as a people, we're just not violent people. So I think the globalists have come to the conclusion that, hey, if we're going to get our civil war,
we got to do it now. Hold right there. Be right back. Don't go away, guys.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, website worldviewradio.com. Now, we're talking about the red. Let's not forget about the green. Here's what a lady out of Nashville said the other night. And I got a lot of clips we're going to have to get through here real quick. But here's what a lady out of Nashville had to say. Listen to this.
We were on the Strip in Broadway, and there was vehicles going up and down Broadway, and they had flags, Islamic flags, and they were all dressed in the black with the red thing, and they were all yelling in like a different language that we didn't understand, and it was so unnerving.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. The music sounded loud on that clip, but what she goes on to say is it was unnerving. I'm going to give you a direct quote. We were on the Strip in Broadway, that's downtown Nashville, and there were vehicles going up and down Broadway, and they had flags, Islamic flags, and they were all dressed in black with the red thing, and they were all yelling in like a different language that we didn't understand. It was so unnerving. It was so unnerving. They're going up and down. They're honking their horns. They got this flag outside. It was really weird, driving around yelling chants and having their Islamic flags, end quote. Well, of course, my guess is she doesn't know what those flags mean. She didn't know what they were chanting. But I'm pretty sure if we had video of it, we would say we know exactly what those flags are. We know exactly what that chant is. Isn't this interesting? October 7th is tomorrow. And it seems as though the red-green axis is very, very full of themselves and very confident right now, Leo.
Yeah. Like I was trying to make the point in the earlier segment, I think both sides are whipped up to a frenzy stage right now and willing to go to war with each other. We just need someone or something to light the fuse. I think the Charlie Kirk assassination was not the main event. I think that was more like a softening up event. And the big one is probably yet to come. Whether it comes tomorrow on the anniversary of October 7th or sometime down the road, I have no idea. I know people are saying something big could happen tomorrow. But I think all that needs to happen is the fuse needs to be lit, and then we're off to the races. Just like on the international scene, there's nobody calling for calm in the growing war between NATO and Russia. It just keeps escalating every day in the news. Ukraine is sending drones to bomb the Russian oil refineries. Now, yesterday we heard that Russia returned the favor and they're bombing the energy facilities and energy infrastructure of Ukraine. No, there are no adults in the room saying, this needs to end. President Trump was saying that for many months. Now he's given up. And so that is going to escalate to World War III and probably thermonuclear war. At the domestic front, same thing. We now have the left and the right. The right is more reticent to become violent, as I tried to explain in that first segment. But with President Trump at the helm, I think that's about to change. I think that both sides are now willing to take up arms against each other. We're just waiting for the triggering event and the fuse to be lit.
And I'm very nervous about many calendar dates coming. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Pray nothing happens. But I also will tell you, Leo, the thing that will incite so many people is anything that involves children, right? And we know from John Gilduck, who we started interviewing in 2008 about Beslan, and have continued to do so, to this talk about what they could do to first responders and first responder uniforms being missing, and they're getting them, and the SIM cards and servers outside of New York, which are one of many that could disrupt 911, but also send false reports of violence or terrorism on buildings that are not occurring, so that they can draw the police and first responders to the other side of town while they attack the other side. There are things that they can do and that they have planned. But then you think about, again, even October 31st, and all the children that are out walking in some neighborhoods. I don't know how big that is anymore. In some places, I hear it's just virtually not a thing anymore. Other neighborhoods, I hear the neighborhoods are packed with children walking. And you think about all the soft targets of those kids. I don't know what it will be that will be the tripping point for many people, but I think it will be something highly emotional, right? Something very emotional that grabs people who live in anywhere USA. And that seems to be what we're being warned. It's also apparently going to be in places where there are a lot of veterans that live. That these folks with the Taliban and folks coming out of Afghanistan who've been trained over there, who have gotten into the country, they want the veterans to fear them the way they supposedly feared the veterans when they were in Afghanistan. So apparently, Sarah Adams and others are warning that it also involves how many veterans live in your community, and that they could be targeting specifically veterans, which means they're targeting now what are just dads, moms raising their kids in the suburbs of anywhere USA. But then we had this report, breaking. Man has been arrested and charged with possessing explosives outside of Washington, D.C. St. Matthew's Cathedral, where the annual Red Mass is to be held in advance of the new Supreme Court term. So I guess the first Monday in October, which means the Supreme Court comes back, they have a mass. Many of the on the court are Catholic. Well, again, think about that. Think about attacking all the members of the U.S. Supreme Court at one time. Again, the collection of threats that I am seeing. Now let's add this in, coming from someone running for Attorney General. Listen to this.
We start with breaking news from the campaign trail.
Jay Jones is under fire tonight.
Jay Jones is under fire.
Jay Jones is under fire after messages he sent in 2022 saying former Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert should be shot.
I'm excited about this ticket.
It's been great to be out on the campaign trail with Jay Jones.
You said Gilbert's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views.
We deserve an attorney general who will stand up for the people of Virginia.
Jones said, quote, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head.
Let your rage fuel you.
Jones doubled down, saying, quote, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes.
How can Virginians trust a man who said something so horrific, so callously?
Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy.
Whoa, you guys hear that? The one lady said, use your rage as fuel. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. Now, you would think, okay, this guy's done. His career is over. But apparently, here we go, VB Democrats turning Virginia Beach blue, October 4th, that was 2 days ago, the Virginia Beach Democrat Committee reaffirms its full support of Jay Jones for Attorney General. Leo, you and I have been at this a long time. Many in our audience have been at it a long time. We have never seen anything in our country like this, probably since the Civil War, which none of us were around for. To think we have people in high places as attorney generals, as mayors, as governors, running for high office, who are literally calling for the murder of the opposition, comparing the opposition to Hitler and Pol Pot and others. We have never seen the normalization and dehumanization and violence from officials like we are seeing in America today, and it's not by mistake. They know what they're doing.
100%, Brandon. And I wouldn't be surprised now to see that this gentleman, I use that term loosely, Mr. Jones, wins the race and becomes the attorney general, because he's speaking the language that resonates in this day and age with the left. And that's where the votes are going to flood in from. He probably just motivated, in past days, decades past, he would have had to apologize and probably withdraw from the race. But in the current age, this is going to actually help him get elected, and he knows that. So I expect more rhetoric like this. It resonates with the voting base on the left.
Now we have one gentleman who's out there on X writing. His name is Hashem, but he writes that Trump's 2024 victory disrupted Qatar's plans to conquer America. He goes on to say, to counter Trump, Qatar devised a strategy to fracture Republicans, knowing failure to do so could then set them back decades. They've invested months and vast resources in forging the woke right, effectively dividing the party. Many Republicans are now heavily Qatar funded, bound by contract to promote Islamist aligned objectives and avoid criticizing Qatar, its emir, or the Muslim Brotherhood. Israel has been exploited as a divisive issue, a red herring to distract from Qatar's true aim to own and Islamicize America. This explains why a nation of fewer than 350,000 citizens is among the largest U.S. lobby spenders, outpacing Israel by a landslide and investing billions annually to engineer the American society and institutions. Qatar's strategy is succeeding spectacularly. They bought dozens of influencers and politicians who are easily swayed. Using Israel to divide was brilliant, as many joined the disruption out of animosity toward Jews or Trump. This is very brilliant because you don't hear a lot about Qatar and Islam. You hear about the Jews. Now, poor Benjamin Netanyahu, he just seems to be either not real bright at times or just so overtired, he's saying stupid things. But he has the audacity to hold a meeting with influencers on video and talk about how we need to be controlling the social media platforms. Now, I understand about pushing back from the propaganda. I get that. That's one thing for me to say it. It's another thing for him to say it. He was not the right person to be saying that. And as I've told Aaron many times, for all the talk the Jews run the world, I don't buy it because I don't think their public relations skills are sharp enough to run the world. Plus, if they run the world, why is all this happening against them, right? But Benjamin, he just seems to open his mouth at the wrong times so often. But I do believe Saudi and Qatari money is funding this. But all we hear about is the Jews, 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 Jews. And I know for a fact that some of these folks on the so-called right have got to be being funded by Islamists. Logan and I and others in our control room talk about these guys that come out of nowhere. All of a sudden, they have millions of viewers. They're everywhere, and no one knew who they were 6 years ago. I think then you got your deep state operatives that are put in by the deep state that are being funded, again, to keep this thesis and antithesis going. Leo?
Yeah, I think both sides, the Israeli lobby and the Islamic lobby, do the exact same thing. The money flows both ways, Brandon, and there's no adults in the room, like I said before, calling for calm at the moment, either internationally or domestically. You've got very inflammatory leaders in place in all the critical areas to foment civil war here at home and World War III on the international stage. You got the Qataris out there fanning the flames. You've got Netanyahu fanning the flames, making stupid comments. Both sides are not neither side is lacking for money. I can tell you that. It just people like you and me, I'm not getting money from either side.
Me
so
neither.
I just call it, I'm not getting any Jewish money. I'm not getting any Qatari or Saudi money. So I just call it like I see it. And sometimes that ticks people off because what I've discovered, Brandon, is the majority of Americans would rather be lied to than told the truth.
Well, I don't know why no Israeli money's come our way. I mean, surely some of these Jewish business owners and government could help us if they wanted to. But I guess a lot of ways we're speaking for free, so why would they pay us? But 1-800-347-9829. 1-800-347-9829. Phone lines now open.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed. All right, 1-800-347-9829. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. 1-800-347-9829. Borders are Tom Holman made a very good comment. He said, no one ever talks about it. I'll talk about it. Why did they release people into the interior United States rather than put them in an ICE bed? Immigration Customs Enforcement. Why not put them in an empty ICE bed? $127 a night rather than a hotel at $500 a night. The Biden administration did it on purpose. If you put them in an ICE detention bed, they get a hearing in 35 days. That's why, folks. This was all by design. Now, what they would have done and how they would have done it if President Trump had lost and Kamala had become president, I don't know. But they had a plan for it. And if President Trump won, then they knew, well, this is how we'll deal with it. This is how we'll use them. And we'll get the reaction we want by doing X, Y, and Z. And we'll all be on the same side, the same team with our mayors and our governors of the blue states. But you can see this was all highly orchestrated. What are your thoughts? 1-800-347-9829. Let's go to Kathy, line 1 in West Virginia. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
My comment is just last week, and I think today I heard you mention how Facebook and the internet has really opened up to you. And last night I was watching a little podcast from Pastor Greg Locke, and he was going on about how Facebook had shut him down ever since COVID, and now how it's opened up and he can put his podcast everywhere, and everything's opened up to him too.
And why do you think that is, Kathy?
That was interesting.
Why do you think, Kathy?
Maybe they're going to want to get this Civil War thing going, like you're talking about.
They want
to bring more out, and cause more conflict.
More of the right-left paradigm. Isn't that interesting, Kathy? I had no idea that others were experiencing this. Thank you for letting me know. What do you think about that, Leo? Isn't that interesting?
Oh, I agree with what Kathy said. In fact, I've noticed the same thing. My WordPress has been basically shut down since shut down from all growth since around the late, I'd say mid 2022 for sure, maybe early 2022. They would never let it grow above a certain number. If I got above that, I would lose some. Now, suddenly, the last, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, I'm getting notices pop up in my email. So-and-so, new subscriber. So-and-so, new subscriber. This is to WordPress. I'm also now allowed on YouTube again. I was banned from YouTube. And if I got interviewed by anybody on YouTube, they had to, they would tell me, I can only ask you about certain things for Rumble, and I'll ask you about other things for YouTube. Like they couldn't ask me about vaccines or elections because it would then get removed from YouTube. Now, suddenly we can talk about anything and it goes on YouTube. So, yes, I've noticed the same thing.
Let's go to Paul, line 4. Hi, Paul.
Hi, yes, I do have a comment about President Netanyahu. Yes, I think he's doing an excellent job. He's much confused and somewhat dismayed by the smear comments on him, especially swayed by public opinion. But knowing he's standing strong for Israel and this hopefully this conflict will soon be at least resolved temporarily. We know from Bible prophecy it will not completely be shut down, but so the West Bank, being called the West Bank, Judea, Samaria will be ceded to the Israelis, not the Palestinian group.
Right. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Let's go to line 2. Alice, line 2. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks so much for taking my call. Oh, Brandon, my heart just aches. I've never known such rhetoric of violence in my life, and if God lets me live, I'll be 80 years old this very month. I'm telling you, Brandon, we need a revival in this country, or we're going to see bloodshed. We're going to see chaos. We're going to see just horrible things happen in this very beautiful land. My heart aches, Brandon. I am praying.
Thank you, Alice. We all should be praying. But I'll tell you something, Alice. be encouraged. I'm seeing some surveys. Mark Mitchell was with us, the lead pollster of Rasmussen. Guess what? Young people, 18 to 29, are now tuning more in to reading the Bible. They're buying Bibles. They're tuning into programs like this. Our numbers are higher, much higher since Charlie Kirk was killed. The numbers are holding high because young people are looking for someone to speak to them about the truth, the Bible, spiritual things. So what God, the Bible says what Satan means for evil, God can use for good. Isn't that interesting? Mark Mitchell tells us that. So be encouraged. Steve, line 1 in Florida. Hi, Steve.
Hey, good afternoon, Brandon. And I wanted to let you know about something with this Charlie Kirk situation. This whole Turning Point USA thing, I believe that from all the evidence now, Charlie Kirk was set up through his wife. And I want to recommend a couple things. First of all, there's a guy named Spencer Smith on YouTube. He's done a series called The Charlie Kirk Files. Now he's up to like 13 episodes. And you look what's happening. His wife, she was actually graduated from, I forget the name of it's a Jesuit-run university, okay? It's the same one that Trump went to. But the thing is, if you look up from 13 years ago, there's a music video that Erica Kirk, before she knew Charlie, actually starred in. Yep. And it was by this band called Emerson Drive, a country band.
I'm going to run out of time, but I did see that. Let me get Leo to comment. I don't want to attack a poor widow or widower without proof, but I will tell you this, guys. The internet is filled with people either praising that woman or hating on that woman, which fulfills, again, the Hegelian dialectic. I don't know what the reality is. I'm watching. I'm trying to learn. I don't know what's truth or lies, and some of I know is lies. But doesn't Leo, you got 10, 15 seconds. But all of that fits in with this division, right?
Absolutely, it does. It seems like something catastrophic happens, and then you got two completely disparate narratives that start feeding off of it, playing left and right off against the center.
Yeah, and let's just pray the truth comes out. But like I said, I'm trying to be very careful, Steve, because we're talking about a lady whose husband was murdered, father of 2 children, and yes, I see what her past is in pageants and music videos and all, but I have to see concrete proof. There's a lot of the internet folks said about a lot of us, including Leo and myself. It's just 100% a lie. So let's be careful, but be wise and discerning and see what happens. Take care.
This has been.
And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and WROS out of Florida and Worldview Tube. Leo, do you think we've already started playing Christmas music here last week. I'm exhausted. So I need to tone it down a little bit. So I started playing Christmas music already. What do you think we're going to be able to make it through a Christmas holiday season with a little more stability, or you think it's just going to ramp up right into the holidays?
As you know, Brandon, these things tend to go in waves, and it'll build up to a crescendo, it seems like, of tension, and then it'll die down a little bit, and we'll get a couple more months of relatively
chaos
calm,
and calm, chaos and calm.
Right
All part of that Tavistock Institute psychological process.
Absolutely. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it calm down in a little bit here, but we know where it's heading. We know where it's heading.
Here's a report that was put out by the National Fraternal Order of Police. This was put out on the 5th of October yesterday. And these guys are very, very upset, rightfully so. National Fraternal Order of Police and Illinois State Fraternal Police condemn reports that Chicago police officers were barred from assisting ICE agents. And now we've got, trucks being rammed, ICE people being rammed, calling for help, not getting it. We're turning into a third world country. We really are. We're turning into a third world country, just the way the criminality of elected officials. How much longer do you think the American people are going to tolerate paying taxes to these corrupt people? I mean, really? I'm paying taxes to these people?
That is a great question, Brandon. And too much taxes. I mean, with all this money coming in with the tariffs, I mean, you would think that some sort of rebate would be in order. President Trump did mention, by the way, over the weekend that he's considering $1,000 to $2,000 rebate checks sent to Americans on their taxes due to all the money coming in from tariffs. I think that should happen, and probably more than that, if indeed the tariffs are generating the type of revenue that he's talking about, and it should be paying down the debt. Why is the debt not being paid down? With all the taxes coming in and with all the new and tariffs are just a new tax. We're paying it at the grocery store. We're paying it at Walmart. We're paying it at all the retail stores. It's just a new tax on Americans. So we should be getting a rebate on some of that money coming back our way. Absolutely.
Let me play a quick clip by Kash Patel, trying to give the audience some good news. But you talk about the deep state and the government being infiltrated by a communist mindset. Wouldn't that be the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has created a lot of trouble for me and others as well, more for others than even me, but I won't get into all that now. We've discussed it before, but this is good news. Listen to this.
Some Republicans, Mr. Director, argue that Nancy Pelosi staged January 6th and the Select Committee covered it up. Based on what you personally know, what are the verifiable events in the lead-ups? And do you, I know you don't speculate, you just deal with facts.
I'm in a unique position. Remember, I was Chief of Staff for the Department of Defense on January 6th. We were responsible for the deployment of the National Guard. And what I was forced to testify to years ago at great personal cost has now once again, just like Russiagate, been proven true, because all I do is speak the truth. On January, actually in the days before January 6th, we were in the Oval Office where the President Trump at the time, authorized, pursuant to law, up to 10 to 20,000 National Guard. We took that authorization because the law's second part required a request from who? Nancy Pelosi and the Metropolitan Police and the mayor at the time. And what did they say? No. And remember what happened for the next 2 years? They say, oh, Kash is lying, Trump's lying. And what did we find? Letters of their declination of the National Guard, refusing to have the National Guard show up. So all I can speak to is the facts, and the facts are those plus this. Nancy Pelosi and her team were busy filming a movie on January 6th while this so-called chaos around her was going down. If she had, just look at it this way, if she had said yes to the National Guard and we had 10,000 uniformed military officers established a secure perimeter, do you think January 6th would have gone differently?
It is intriguing that 250 FBI plainclothes agents were inside the Capitol on January 6th. I saw the president's tweet to get to the bottom of it. Who placed them there? What were they doing? Were they inciting violence? What can you tell us, Mr. Director?
This is a great example of the president's initiative to solve all the answers on January 6th. And it's another example of our transparency efforts. Pursuant to the president, we investigated the matter and found out why FBI agents were placed there in the first place. And it turns out we found documentation and witnesses and whistleblowers that said we were forced to go there to do riot control. Armstrong, do you know what the FBI does not do ever? Riot control. We don't do that. So the prior leadership sent 250 some odd men and women into a situation they're not trained for, put them in harm's way, put the individuals.
I thought he was going to get into the Southern Poverty Law Center there as well, but that alone is proof positive, folks. At the highest levels of our government, they are agitating for a civil war. Wow. LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. Take care.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research.